leader Hindenburg. January the 30th, 1933. Hitler finally became Chancellor of Germany. His share of the popular vote had increased to nearly 44%, and with the support of nationalists and government, he had a majority in the Reichstag. Hitler also enjoyed the support of the army and several wealthy industrialists, who saw him as the answer to political chaos. A month after Hitler came to power, the Reichstag, seat of the German democratic government, was set on fire. The Nazi Party blamed the communists, but others accused the SA. In the face of apparent anarchy, Hitler seized the opportunity to pass an enabling act, which allowed him and his cabinet to rule without reference to the Reichstag. Meanwhile, the SA attacked and silenced all opposition, and placed its own people in charge of government institutions. It was, in effect, a coup. Röhm made sure that his old comrade von Epp became Reich Commissioner of Bavaria. Only three elements now stood in the way of Hitler becoming complete dictator of Germany. The most immediate problem was Paul von Hindenburg, Germany's great military hero. He had been elected German president and was disturbed by the political turmoil created by the Nazis. The 86-year-old Hindenburg had considerable power and influence among the German population. Uncertain about Hitler's ability to restore order on the streets, Hindenburg could have diffused Hitler's growing influence. The army was equally concerned about the activities of Röhm's brown shirts. The SA now numbered almost 4 million and posed a real threat to the authority of the army. Hitler could not afford to ignore the general's concerns, as he was keen to expand their ranks. Finally, there was Ernst Röhm himself. Immensely popular among his own legions of brown shirts, he wielded real power on the streets. And he openly criticized all the traditional elements of German society: businessmen, generals, and the old Prussian ruling class, the very groups on whose support Hitler relied. Röhm passionately believed that a second revolution was needed to sweep away these parasites. He enjoyed the politics of conflict, not compromise. He embarked on several tours around Germany, presenting himself as a political leader and rousing the support of his men for his revolutionary vision. SA members were now required to swear an oath of loyalty to him. This was not what Hitler wanted to hear. With absolute power within his grasp, he needed to reassure the powerful traditional elements of German society. Röhm's ambitions hinted at political chaos. Within the Nazi Party, others were also dismayed at Röhm's powerful position. Hermann Göring had been favored by Hindenburg and now felt in sympathy with the more traditional army elite. To expand his own power base, Göring had taken control of the Gestapo, a civilian secret police force which was to become one of the Nazis' most feared weapons. In April 1934, Göring made Heinrich Himmler head of the Prussian Gestapo. Already chief of the SS, Himmler was ambitious for more power and saw Röhm as an obstacle. He hated the fact that the SS was still subordinate to Rome's SA. Aided by his second-in-command, Reinhard Heydrich, Himmler began to collect complaints against the SA, including details of its leaders' scandalous sex lives. Rome's palatial new headquarters in Munich was rumoured to be a hotbed of perversion. Karl Wolff, later an SS general and Hitler's adjutant, saw how the pressure mounted.
Excesses have always happened and will always happen. What is decisive is how the leadership reacts at any given moment to stop these excesses. We in the SS always insisted that action should be taken.
Finally, the growing pressure forced Hitler to act against his old comrade. The conspiracy began.
He took only the most senior commanders into his confidence, and he wanted the assurance that his orders would be carried out. Certainly Himmler was among them, for Himmler dealt with all matters concerning security. The contingency planning was very secret. Nothing was done in writing. All preparations were verbal. One did not want to alert the SA.
On the surface, however, Himmler and Röhm were the best of friends. Both godfathers to Heydrich's first child. But Röhm's own ego and ambition steadily began to alienate him from the one person who could protect him. In private, Röhm was beginning to criticize his former friend. He's betraying all of us, he claimed. He only goes around with reactionaries. It was true. In public, Hitler wore civilian clothes and was openly subservient to Hindenburg. In February 1934, a grand dinner was held in Berlin to heal the rift between the SA and the army. A drunken Röhm declared, "Hitler is a traitor. If we can't get there with him, we'll get there without him." SA officer Victor Lutze witnessed the conversation and passed Röhm's drunken threats on to Hitler. Hindenburg and leading army generals demanded that Hitler take action against him. On the 11th of April, Hitler joined military leaders on the cruiser Deutschland. They offered him a deal, their support for his dictatorship in return for Röhm. Although Hitler could see the political sense in moving against Röhm, there were pangs of doubt. Röhm was one of his oldest comrades. On the 4th of June, Hitler had a 5-hour private discussion with Röhm. He persuaded him to take a break from his SA activities in Berlin. Hitler suggested his friend take a holiday with his top advisors at Bad Wiessee near Munich. Meanwhile, behind the political scenes, Franz von Papen, Vice-Chancellor of Germany, had decided to make a speech criticizing the Nazi regime. Hitler managed to stop the speech from being broadcast, but von Papen was still angry at Nazi excesses and threatened to resign. He also threatened to complain to Hindenburg. The old warlord, on the verge of death, could still disrupt Hitler's plans. Hitler visited him privately on the 25th of June to ease his concerns. If political violence continued, Hindenburg would have no choice but to declare martial law and let the army rule the country. The Nazi project was at a critical crossroads. Hitler had to act quickly or risk losing power. Midsummer 1934. Hitler was verging on total control over Germany. But one major obstacle remained. One of his oldest friends, Ernst Röhm. Röhm's power-hungry, erratic behavior had alienated most of the Nazi high command. Hitler knew that to stay in power, he had to act decisively against Röhm and the brown shirts. A list of prominent SA members was drawn up and circulated among Goering, Himmler and other conspiring Nazis. A hit list.
Those lists were mainly drawn up between Himmler and Goering. Goering had to approve all the names. Goering had been put in overall charge of the entire operation, Operation Hummingbird.
To keep up the facade of friendship, Goering attended the wedding of Karl Ernst, a senior SA figure whose name was already on the hit list. Hitler himself was still not certain what to do with Röhm. His old friend had been instrumental in his rise to power. He considered simply sacking him, but a plot by several of Röhm's leading rivals forced Hitler's hand. On a visit to Italy, fellow fascist dictator Benito Mussolini advised Hitler to act against his revolutionary left wing. On the 28th of June, Hitler attended a wedding in the Rhineland. The next day, he joined the conspirators at a hotel. That evening, Operation Hummingbird was launched. SS Gruppenführer Sepp Dietrich was ordered to take 2 SS companies to Bad Wiessee, the resort town where Röhm was on holiday. At the same time in Berlin, 1,300 members of Hitler's special SS bodyguard were made combat ready at the Berlin Cadet School of Lichterfelde. Two days later, Hitler flew to Munich. There, he was falsely informed by his closest advisors that the SA had attempted an unsuccessful putsch against him. This lie sealed Röhm's fate. Accompanied by the faithful Sepp Dietrich, Hitler chose to believe the lies about Röhm. Having worked himself into a fury, he joined an SS convoy of black Mercedes to confront Röhm. In a pretty lakeside hotel at Bad Wiessee, Röhm and his leading SA associates were enjoying a break from the political turmoil of Berlin. They relaxed, unaware of the plot closing in on them. Although Hitler had many doubts about this move against Röhm, any lingering feelings of gratitude and affection for his old comrade had been superseded by his desire for political survival. By driving to Bad Wiessee, Hitler took full responsibility for the operation. Had he not acted personally, the Nazi Party could have split. He had to demonstrate decisive leadership to his supporters. He arrived at 6:30 in the morning at Bad Wiessee. Armed with pistols, Hitler and his SS men burst into the hotel. They rushed up the stairs to the rooms where Röhm and his comrades were sleeping. Röhm opened his door to be faced with Hitler, revolver in hand. Hitler told Röhm to get dressed. He was under arrest. Hitler carried on to the other rooms. All the top SA leadership was arrested. One of them was found in bed with another man. Suddenly, Hitler was repelled by the SA's homosexuality. "You pigs," he shouted, "you should be shot." As the SA men were locked in the hotel cellar, Hitler and his SS associates drove back to Munich. There, other key SA figures were rounded up and imprisoned. The first stages of the operation had gone smoothly, but the rampage had just begun. Hitler looked elsewhere for further action. With the code word Hummingbird, Goering was informed by Joseph Goebbels to proceed in Berlin. SS murder squads based at Lichterfelde went into action. Dozens of suspects were arrested, tortured, and executed in what later became known as the Night of the Long Knives. And it was not just the SA leaders who bore the brunt of Hitler's anger. Himmler's black uniformed SS were given license to attack all of Hitler's opponents, including those who'd crossed him in the distant past. Ritter von Kahr, the man who'd crushed Hitler's beer hall putsch, was found hacked to pieces in Dachau. Kurt von Schleicher, the last chancellor of the democratically elected Weimar Republic, was shot at his desk by 6 Nazi assassins, who then turned their guns on his wife. Gregor Strasser, an early rival to Hitler as leader of the Nazi Party, was tortured by the Gestapo before being executed. Karl Ernst, whose wedding Goering had attended just days earlier, was arrested on his honeymoon and put in front of a firing squad. As he faced his SS executioners, SA member Hans-Peter von Heydebreck shouted, "Long live the Führer!" But loyalty to Hitler meant nothing, as the SS pursued private vendettas under the cloak of suppressing a revolt. SA Commander Engels was driven out into the forest by SS men and shot. Dozens more were hunted down and executed. Gestapo torture cells extracted meaningless confessions from those already condemned to die. There were claims of hundreds, even thousands of deaths. In reality, there were probably 85 victims. Finally, Hitler had to consider the fate of Röhm. Should he simply keep him in prison or silence him permanently? Theodor Eicke was dispatched to Röhm's cell at Stadelheim prison to carry out the Führer's orders. Eicke was the brutal commandant at Dachau, one of the concentration camps established by the brown shirts to house their opponents. Shortly before 6 p.m. on the 1st of July 1934, Eicke entered Röhm's cell. He threw down a copy of a newspaper with the headline, "Röhm Arrested." Eicke left a pistol with a single bullet on Röhm's table. 15 minutes later, with Röhm refusing to commit suicide, Eicke and a colleague re-entered the cell. Röhm was shot dead with 3 bullets. His last words were, "Mein Führer, mein Führer."